Everybody, and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be starting yet another reading vlog. I am quite excited about this one, but I am a little bit nervous because today I'm going to be starting another reading challenge, which is going to be me reading 200 pages a day for a week. So I have done two videos very similar to this already. I did one where I read 100 pages a day for a week, and then last year I did one where I read 150 pages a day for a week. So for this video, I was like, why don't we just go ahead and make it even harder by trying to read 200 pages a day for a week. So that is going to be the video. I should be doing a lot of reading this week. I am in like a really big reading mood, so it's kind of perfect. This is either going to go really well or really badly, I don't know, but you and I, we are gonna find out as this video progresses. So let me just quickly go through the books that are on my TBR. I think I have 4 books that I'm aiming to finish this week. Should be doable. The first one is a book that I've been meaning to read for quite a while. It's on my spring TBR, it's on my March TBR, it's on all the TBRs, okay? And that is The Magician's Daughter by H.G. Perry. This is a historical fantasy book that is following our main character Biddy, who lives on a magical island off the coast of Ireland, and her guardian goes missing one day and she has to go find him, basically. I've heard some really good things about this one, and I just recently realized that this is the author that has a blurb on top of Emily Wilde's Map of the Otherlands. So I was like, that indicates to me that's gonna be like similar vibes type situation, like with the historical fantasy things going on. So I've been super excited about picking this one up. It also feels like the perfect read for spring. I don't know, just something about historical fantasy always seems to fit spring in my mind. So, gonna be reading this one, and then kind of sticking with the historical fantasy theme for the next one, I'm also gonna be reading The 10,000 Doors of January. This one, I believe, is following our main character, January, who finds this book, I think in a library of this mansion that she lives in, and it is apparently a book that carries the scent of other worlds and tells tales of secret doors, of lore, adventure, and danger, which obviously sounds amazing. I've also heard this book compared a lot to The Starless Sea. I feel like anytime I'm looking online for like books like The Starless Sea, as one does with their favorite books, this book always pops up. So I've been very intrigued to get into this one, see if I would agree with that comparison. I don't know, but we're definitely gonna find out. And I can't wait. And then the last book that I'm for sure going to be reading this week is very different from those, because these two are like an adult historical fantasy whimsical kind of time. But then I've also been really excited about this one because it came out recently, and that is The Invocations by Crystal Sutherland. This is the author that wrote House of Hollow, which I read last year and really ended up enjoying. I've also been in like kind of a spooky mood recently. I've been wanting to pick up some spooky books, so I thought this would be a good pick. So today is currently Friday. I don't have a ton of plans for today, so obviously gonna get into one of these immediately. I don't know which one though. I'm debating between one of these. I know I don't want to read them back to back, so I'm gonna start with one, then maybe read The Invocations, then read the other one. I just don't want to read like too much historical fantasy in one go. I think I might start with The Magician's Daughter. This is probably the one that I'm leaning towards. It is like 370 something pages, so should finish this one up tomorrow. Aside from that though, I do have some plans to go to a new library today. There is just a library that I haven't been to. It looks cool. They also have a book that I'm hoping to pick up, so I will show you guys that as well. But I'm gonna do that a little bit later because first I want to get into this one, make some progress, get started on my 200 pages. So I hope you guys are excited for this vlog. I certainly think this is going to be a really fun time, so without further ado, let's get into reading The Magician's Daughter. is a little bit later. I have not made a ton of progress in The Magician's Daughter yet. I'm literally only on page 16. I'm on chapter 2 now, but I am about to go to the library, so I thought I would kind of stop before I did that and give you guys my very, very initial thoughts and feelings on this book, because I think I'm gonna love it. Like, I really think I'm going to absolutely adore this book. It honestly just seems like a book so far that is exactly what I love, like a book that is made for me. Oh man, if this one disappoints me, I'm gonna be so sad. But I don't think it will. I think it's gonna be good. I think it's gonna be good. So basically, let me give you kind of my initial thoughts, and I can also kind of tell you what the book is about so far. So as I said in the intro, we are following our main character Biddy, who lives on this magical island off the coast of Ireland. She's been living here her entire life. She doesn't know anything outside of this island, and she lives on it with her guardian Rowan, and Rowan is actually a magician, as the title would suggest. And he has this familiar whose name is Hutch, who I think is a rabbit, which is really fun. And so far I'm really enjoying the dynamic between Biddy and Rowan, because it's very much like a father-daughter type of dynamic. They bicker a lot, they've been arguing a lot recently, but you can tell that they really care for each other, and it's been so nice already. Like, I'm only like 16 pages in, but I'm like, I can just tell that I'm really gonna like that too. And we have learned that Rowan leaves this island very frequently, but Biddy has never been allowed to leave this island, and she's very salty about it. Rightfully so, to be honest, but I do have a feeling that is going to change very soon, because right at the end of chapter 1 we saw Rowan like going off on one of his whatevers. He won't tell Biddy what he's doing when he leaves the island, so I'm also very intrigued by that, but he leaves one night and doesn't come back. So obviously I think Biddy is about to kind of get her first taste of what things are like off of this island. If I had to take a guess, this is probably going to be kind of a coming of age story for Biddy, because I think she's around 16. She's never seen anything outside of this island, outside of this life that she has, so I'm quite excited to follow her as she's having all of these new experiences. I'm really thinking I'm gonna like Biddy as a main character. So plot-wise and character-wise, I'm loving that so much, and then also the writing so far I'm really liking, because it's like my favorite type of writing, because it's not overly flowery, but I feel like it just flows so nicely and I enjoy it so much. I love it so much. I think I've decided that I want to annotate this book, because I have started kind of underlining and circling things in here, but I think I want to like throw some tabs in here as well. Kind of excited about that. It's been a minute since I've like annotated something, so I kind of want to annotate this one. But just some of this writing I really like. Let me find a good one. It says, she was a half-wild thing of ink and grass and sea breezes, raised by books and rabbits and fairy lore, and that was all she cared to be. And that I just love so much in like the actual writing style and what that means for like the general vibe of this book. Also, I think there's like the fair folk used to live on this island, so I was like, that's fun. I really like that too. And overall, I just have a really good feeling that I'm gonna love this book. So I just wanted to quickly come on here, give you guys those kind of initial thoughts, tell you guys that I'm loving it so far. And I'm so excited to read some more of this today, because obviously I have a lot of reading that I need to do today. So obviously I will be jumping back into this when I get home later, but for now it is actually time to go to the library, which I'm quite excited about. So let's go get some books, look around because I've never been here before, and I will come back later to show you guys the books that I picked up. So I returned from the library, and obviously I do want to show you the 2 books that I picked up, even though you already saw them, but I'm gonna show you again, so I hope that's okay. But the main reason I went to the library was to pick up a copy of Tithe by Holly Black. Now, I'm not expecting this series to be good, but I read The Darkest Part of the Forest last week. Just like randomly, I decided to read that book and I was like, this is really good. And that book is set in the world of the Folk of the Air, and I believe this series, the Modern Fairy Tale series, is also set in that world. So I've been quite curious to see what I'm gonna think of this one, just because I do kind of want to read all the books that are set in that general world. And I did start this one last night on ebook. I don't know how far I made it. On chapter 5. Dang, I read a lot of this. This book is so tiny. I feel like I've made so much progress. I'm literally on page 87 of this book. I'm not gonna read this in this vlog just because this is kind of something I'm reading on like my own time, but it's interesting. It's very, when was this book written? I think this was written in like 2006. 2002. Okay, that's even earlier than I thought. It reads very much like a book written in 2002. Okay, we're just gonna kind of leave it at that. But I'm still probably gonna continue the series because I'm intrigued enough to kind of just see what this is about. So I'm probably gonna like finish this up sometime next week. I'm not gonna read this in this vlog, but I did want to show you guys that I picked it up. I also love this tiny book. It's so short. Like, look at it compared to this one. It's so small. I love it. But then I also decided to pick up this, which I think this was like, was it a Barnes & Noble, I don't know, like book club pick? I've seen this cover a lot because I think it's been on like the display tables, and I've always been intrigued, and that is A Multitude of Dreams by Mara Rutherford. This is like a YA gothic fantasy maybe kind of situation. I'm pretty sure this is a retelling of an Edgar Allan Poe story, but I don't know which one. But I'm like, I'm kind of in the mood for some spooky books right now. This seems kind of fun. I don't know. So this one's definitely a maybe. I'm not sure if I'm gonna pick it up or not, but I wanted to check it out in case the mood struck. So yeah, there's my small library haul. Also, this library, very nice, very fun. I love visiting a new library. I've always seen this one, but I've never gone in, and it was really nice. It was very like open. There was a lot of windows. I was a big fan. But now that I've done all that, it is now time to hop back into The Magician's Daughter because I have a lot of reading to do today. But I'm not mad about that because, as I said earlier, I'm really liking this. So I'm going to read my 200 pages, and I will probably catch up with you guys tomorrow with hopefully a more sizable update than I had earlier. next morning, and I do indeed have my update for you guys on The Magician's Daughter. I did end up reading my 200 pages last night. I might have finished reading them at like 11:45, but it's fine. So I decided that today I would be starting my reading earlier. And I did, which is good. So yesterday, I think I read until page 205, and then I've been reading a bit this morning, and I'm now on page 234. So I've read about 30 pages so far, and I need to give you guys an update on this book because I'm now like over halfway through it. And it's definitely different than what I was anticipating it being, and I probably shouldn't have given you guys an update after the first chapter because one chapter of this book was certainly not enough to like get a taste as to what the rest of the book was gonna be like. And it's not different in a bad way, it's just different than what I was really expecting it to be. Because the first chapter is still very whimsical, is very fun, it's still very light, it's just a delightful read, to be honest. You're finding out all about Biddy, all about this island, all about Rowan and Hutch, and I just really liked that. And I just don't think the rest of this book has really maintained that whimsical vibe, but I think that is very much deliberate and it's kind of indicative of what Biddy is going through, because as we have read more of this book, we are seeing Biddy leave this island. She's kind of getting slapped by the harsh realities of the world. She's also getting slapped by some other harsh realities, and honestly, it's like, it's kind of sad to see what Biddy's going through. Like, I'm really liking it, and I think it's really interesting, but it's not exactly as, I guess, lighthearted as I was expecting it to be. But obviously having Biddy face all of these harsh realities and have her go through things that the people around her have gone through for their entire lives is very important for her own character development. But again, that doesn't mean I'm not liking it. It's just not what I was anticipating, you know? And that's my own fault for like having my own expectations. But so far in this book, we've just been following Biddy as she is kind of having her first experiences out in the real world. Obviously on this island, it's very secluded, she's very isolated. She had literally never seen a stranger before. She had known Rowan and Hutch her entire life, but that's it. And then immediately she gets thrust into the real world. She has to start working at this kind of orphanage place, but it's the stark contrast I think is definitely intentional. The way that it's done is done really well, and you just feel so much for Biddy going through all of this. And I still really love Biddy as a main character. I feel like she is very strong, very still hopeful even in the dark times, and I like that. But she's also learning that Rowan may not have been 100% truthful with her the whole time that she's been on the island as well. And seeing her inner turmoil over how much she, you know, loves and cares for him because he has been a really good guardian, and how betrayed she feels by all of these things that he didn't tell her, I think is a really fascinating kind of thing to watch her go through. And also, as I've read more, I've kind of figured out how magic fits into the world, because we knew that Rowan was a magician, but it turns out there's this whole like magic council that has been trying to steal all of the magic from the world and kind of limit what the magicians of the world have been able to use. And Rowan's whole kind of mission has been to stop this from happening, and he's doing it in some interesting ways that may not be 100% ethical. You're not really sure yet. And I think there are a couple of characters in this book that you just don't really know how to feel about, and I like that a lot because it kind of keeps me guessing. I'm like, what are their motives? Are they a good person? What's this all about? I have to find out. Because you have Rowan, but then you also have kind of a person from Rowan's past who has popped up and become more of a main character, and you're not really sure what she's about either. And I'm quite excited to find out more about all of the characters in this book and kind of figure out where they stand, what their motivations are, all that kind of stuff. So I'm liking the characters a lot, and I think that's probably my favorite part of the book. I'm also really liking a lot of the writing that's in this book. I like the way the story has progressed. I think it's been really well paced so far because Biddy's been going through a lot in this book, honestly. But I'm also just really, really enjoying this. So I'm going to obviously be finishing this book up today. I think I have like 140 pages left right now. I'm gonna finish this up, and then I'm thinking I also want to start The Invocations by Crystal Sutherland, which I'm quite excited about as well. So I'm gonna go finish this up, gonna start that, and then I will get back to you guys probably tomorrow with my final thoughts on this and initial thoughts on that. Hello, so it is currently Sunday afternoon. I've been spending most of my day kind of just chilling, to be honest. I did some updating in my journal this morning, which I showed you guys. I watched Cass's new vlog this morning, which was great. And now I'm back to give you guys some updates on these two books because I did hit my 200 pages yesterday, which is good. I think I ended up reading 240 pages yesterday because I finished The Magician's Daughter. And then I started this next book that we're gonna talk about, and it has been so good so far, so I needed to read like more of that. But I did finish The Magician's Daughter yesterday, and overall I did enjoy this book, but I feel like the pacing was a little bit off in the second half, which definitely kind of impacted my reading experience overall. I feel like had the pacing been a bit snappier, I would have maybe been into it a little bit more in the second half, but I just felt like things were taking too long to happen. So I didn't love that, but I think overall I am still super glad that I finally got around to picking this book up and reading it. And I think the main reason I did enjoy it was the characters, and I think that's where this book really shines, because I really enjoyed Biddy as our main character. Watching her grow from this, you know, very sheltered, isolated young girl living on this island into who she becomes at the end of the book was really lovely to watch. And I also just really enjoyed the themes of this book overall because it is a very coming of age story. It's about the loss of innocence through watching Biddy kind of leaving this island and experiencing the real world. And I think it was really sad in some parts watching Biddy go through that, but I think there are also a lot of really wholesome and kind of heartwarming moments in the book as well, and I thought it was a really good balance. But back to the characters. I like Biddy a lot, and I also really liked all of these side characters in this book too. I think Rowan was a really interesting guardian for Biddy to have, because throughout the book, Biddy finds out that there are some things that Rowan has not been telling her, and maybe he's been doing some things he shouldn't necessarily do. And watching Biddy kind of grapple throughout the story with whether or not she should trust him kind of just shows how multifaceted humans can be, and Biddy is kind of realizing this for the first time, and I just really liked how that was done. I also just really liked Rowan as a character in general. He definitely gives Hal vibes from Howl's Moving Castle. Look, I know, people throw around Howl's Moving Castle as a comp title for books so often, and I am one of those people because I love Howl's Moving Castle with my whole heart. So anytime anybody's like, this book is kind of like Howl's Moving Castle, I'm like, well, that is a book that I'm going to need to pick up right now. And I'm gonna continue to do that because he definitely gives Hal vibes, and it is kind of who I was envisioning going through the book. Also, at one point, Biddy has like a fake name for herself for this thing that is like relevant to the plot, and she calls herself Sophie. So I'm like, I see you. I know what you're doing. But I really like Rowan overall. I also really liked Hutch, who is Rowan's familiar. He turns into a little rabbit, which I think is so cute. But I think my favorite dynamic that was presented, and I wish there had been a little bit more done with it, but I still really enjoyed it, was Biddy's relationship with a certain person from Rowan's past. Because throughout the entirety of Biddy's life so far, she is never had a woman in her life, really. And I just can't even imagine, honestly, what it would be like growing up as a young girl to not have those female influences in your life. And you definitely see Biddy kind of start to realize that for herself as she is going out in the world for the first time and forming all of these friendships and just connections with women that she meets, and seeing her develop that kind of like mother-daughter almost relationship with this woman from Rowan's past was honestly just one of my favorite parts of the book because it's so wholesome, and finally seeing Biddy get to have a close relationship with a woman, it's just so special, and I really like that as well. And overall, I really enjoyed this book. I think if you are in the mood for a slow-moving historical fantasy book, I would definitely recommend. It's not quite as whimsical as I was hoping it would be, but that's kind of just a expectation that I had for it, so it was still really good, and I would definitely recommend. So there's this, book one down for the week. Only 3 more to go, but I do have quite an exciting update on the next book that we're going to talk about because I did start the Invocations, and it's so good. It's so good so far, and I'm so excited. So I think I read to page like 72 yesterday, and then I've been reading a little bit more today, and I'm now on page 114. and I am loving this book so far. And I am a little bit scared to say that because I know I said the same thing about The Magician's Daughter, but I am further into this book at least now that I'm giving you this update. So I think it will continue to be really good. From the first paragraph alone, I knew I was going to be eating this book up, and I absolutely am. Let me just read it to you. Also, the dedication for this book is for all of the angry girls, and I love that already. I can definitely tell that feminine rage is going to be a large part of this book, and I can definitely tell that already in the way that like misogyny is tied to witchcraft and how it's being used in this book. And I think I'm really gonna like that in here as well, but also just the ambiance. Anyway, I got distracted. I'm reading the first paragraph to you. That's what I'm doing. It says, a girl walks home alone at night. It's All Hallows Eve in London, and the street that stretches before her is empty, quiet except for the soft thud of her boots on the sidewalk and the rustle of autumn leaves plucked by the wind. Hello. I feel like I love Crystal Sutherland's writing. I loved it in House of Hollow. I'm loving it so far in this book. I feel like it's very atmospheric. I love her writing style, but I feel like it's also paired with really good dialogue, and it's just very entertaining. It's kind of funny at times, but it definitely has those like spooky, creepy vibes, and it makes you feel very unsettled, and I'm just loving that so far. But this book honestly starts out with a bang, because in the prologue you are following the girl who is walking home alone at night, and she's being followed by this man, and he ends up presumably strangling her to death. And then immediately after that, you're just kind of thrown into the three main points of view that we're following, so it really sets the tone for the book. Because I think the tagline of this is 3 girls, 1 supernatural killer. So I'm like, how are these girls going to tie in to the thing that happened in the prologue? And just immediately I was hooked. I was ready for a story like this. But as for like the 3 main characters that we're following, the first one that you're following is the one that definitely intrigued me the most right off of the bat, because she attends Oxford, which first of all, I didn't know that any portion of this book would be set at Oxford, but I was like, give me the dark academia atmosphere. Thank you. But she attends Oxford. I wouldn't necessarily say she is a student there, but she goes there. So you're like, why is she here? Why is she doing this? What's going on? Immediately you just have like a million questions, and you don't really have any of those answered initially. And you kind of just move on to our other 2 main points of view. The first one being Jude, who you learn has these 3 demons tied to her soul. And these demons have been wreaking havoc on her life like no other. She was a part of this like very wealthy family, but because of the things that these demons have made her do, her family has disowned her. They have told the public that she went on a drug bender and she is now like, I don't know, in rehab or something. And she now lives alone. She cannot make any contact with the family. And she is just like not having a good time, obviously. All she wants is her old life back, so we are following her as she is trying to get into contact with a witch. And then we kind of switch to our other point of view, which is Zara, whose sister recently was murdered. And instead of going through the normal grieving process, she's like, I think I'm gonna turn to necromancy instead. So she is also trying to contact a witch who can help her bring her sister back to life. So obviously so far it's all very witchy. I can definitely see how the 3 points of view are going to be intersecting, and I'm so excited to see, because all 3 of them are very different. They all have different backgrounds, they have very differing personalities, and I feel like the dynamic of all 3 of them together is going to be something I'm really going to enjoy reading about. And I just think this book is going to be so good. I think I'm gonna like this more than House of Hollow because I already love the witchy vibes and the feminist undertones that brings into it, and also the kind of mystery element of them trying to figure out who this supernatural serial killer is. There are just so many good aspects to this book that I think are going to be so creepy, so spooky. It's exactly the kind of book that I've been wanting to read right now, even though it's literally the beginning of March as I'm reading this book, but only 6 months until October. So honestly, I think this book would be perfect for October, but I cannot wait that long to read this book. But if it sounds interesting to you, then I would definitely recommend reading it in October. I feel like Crystal Sutherland's atmospheric writing, beautiful. I just love it so much so far. I hope that continues throughout the book. I feel like it will. I just have so many questions. I'm so intrigued to see what's going to happen. But it's currently 5:30. I've only read like 40 pages so far today, but honestly this book reads really quickly, so I don't think I'm gonna have an issue reading a lot of this book today. So I definitely think I should be able to get to my 200 pages. So yeah, I'm gonna go read my 200 pages. I will catch up with you guys tomorrow morning with another update on this. Hopefully I'm still adoring it. We shall see. So it is quite a bit later, but I decided to give you guys my update for the Invocations today instead of waiting for tomorrow, because I think I kind of want to take tomorrow off from vlogging anything. Like, I'm still gonna read my 200 pages, but I think I might just like not film anything tomorrow. So I hope that's okay. But I did want to give you guys my update on this because this book is still so good. But actually first, I have another update for you, because I know you have all been waiting with bated breath for my next Haribo review. We got the Easter ones this time. We got the Happy Chicks. They're delicious, quite scrumptious. Honestly, 10 out of 10. I have tried the other Easter Haribo that is out in the store. It's not it, but like this one, it's good. I'd recommend. And they have been my snack of choice while I've been reading this evening, so it's good stuff. But anyway, this book. I have indeed hit my 200 pages for the day. I'm on page 277 now, and I feel like I might be giving this book a 5-star. I feel like I am far enough in the book that I can maybe put that prediction out there with some certainty, because I'm just loving it so much. Like, this book is so spooky, so creepy. There was literally a whole grave robbing scene that just happened, and I was gonna say I'm eating it up. I don't know if that's exactly the turn of phrase that I want to use there. But I just love the atmosphere of this book, and the things that our characters are doing are bonkers, honestly. Like, they use the word bonkers to describe what they're doing, and I absolutely agree. Because the things that have already happened, I'm like side-eyeing, but in a good way. And the things that are about to happen, I'm like side-eyeing, but this time in a bad way, because what's going on? But as we have progressed throughout the book, we've been finding out that all of these women that have been killed by this supernatural serial killer that's on the loose have been clients of one of our other main characters, Emmer, I think. I don't think I mentioned her name in the update before this because I couldn't remember it, but she's like an actual witch, and she performs these kind of, they're called invocations. They're like curses, I think, that are put on women that give them abilities in some way. And initially, both Jude and Zara had their own motivations for wanting to meet up with Emmer, but as the book has progressed, they've kind of decided to all work together in an attempt to solve this murder and like figure out who is doing all of these things. They made a murder board, and I was like, any book that involves the characters having to make a murder board is gonna be a good book. And I just really love the way that the story is unfolding. A lot of the I don't want to call them shenanigans because that seems too lighthearted, but like a lot of the things that our characters are doing, I'm like, that's crazy. But I'm so entertained. Like, I had no expectations going into this book. I hadn't even read the synopsis. I didn't really know anything about it. But what I'm getting is it's even better than I could have imagined. It's just so good. I also am continuing to both love and be disgusted by Crystal Sutherland's writing, because there are some things that are described and I'm like, I never needed to hear that described to me. Because one of our main characters, Jude, was trying to do some witchcraft, I think in her early teen years, that went really, really badly, basically. And there's a word for it, but I can't remember what it is, but her soul is like necrotic now or something. So she's rotting away, and that's like her whole motivation, wanting to find this witch. Like, she wants help to stop this from happening, basically. But one of the side effects of that happening is just everything around her being absolutely disgusting. I don't know how to explain that better, but the descriptions that we've been getting of her, like, apartment are gross. Like, everything is wet and moldy. Her basement is literally filled with pus. I'm disgusted, but I don't want to say in a good way. It's interesting. I just really like it. I really like the horror elements that are brought into this book because it's a lot to do with, like, death and decay and kind of utilizing that in many different ways. So I'm going to call that good for this update. I'm gonna let you guys go. I will talk to you guys on Tuesday when I have hopefully finished this book and I have hopefully started another book. I'm probably gonna start the 10,000 Doors of January next. Probably. I don't know. I will, I'll figure that out and I'll let you know what I start on Tuesday. So I'll see you then. Good morning. It is now Tuesday morning, and I do indeed have some interesting reading updates for you guys. First of all, this book. I finished The Invocations yesterday, and I'm absolutely giving this book a 5 stars. I ordered a physical copy off of Pengo yesterday, and I'm so excited because I really need a physical copy of this for my shelves because I loved this book, honestly. It is just the perfect YA horror spooky book. If literally anything I've said about this sounds interesting to you, highly recommend you pick it up in like October, maybe early November. I think it would be so perfect for that time of year. But I'm certainly not mad that I picked it up now because I just thoroughly enjoyed it. I really liked the characters. I liked the way that this book ended. I thought it was really action-packed towards the end, and I feel like the book overall maintains a really good pace, and there's always kind of something interesting going on. There are just so many questions that you have throughout the book that you need answers to, and I just had such a good time reading this book. So obviously I had to give it 5 stars. So I feel like I've said enough about this book throughout this video already, but it was so good. So I finished this yesterday, and then I've actually kind of pivoted a bit from the TBR that I initially told you guys I was gonna read in this video. I will still probably be picking up the 10,000 Doors of January at the very end of this video because I don't think the book that I picked up is going to fulfill like all the pages that I need to read for the rest of the week. But I decided that after reading The Invocations, I didn't want to kind of hop back into reading more historical fantasy. I kind of just wanted something completely different. So I was thinking maybe I should start Elantris by Brandon Sanderson. I've been trying to get myself to read this book ever since I bought it like a year ago, I think, at this point. And I figured if I'm even having the sliver of a thought that I might want to pick this book up, I should just roll with it and like actually read it. So I started this yesterday and I ended up reading I think 100 pages of it yesterday. So my total page count for yesterday was 218 pages maybe. And then I've also been reading some of this morning and I'm now on page 154. So I think I'm like almost exactly a fourth of the way through this book. And it's been so interesting so far. I don't exactly know how I'm feeling about it because I think there are a lot of things that I'm liking, which we'll get into in a second, but I also think you can really tell that this is Brandon Sanderson's first published work. I just feel like in the rest of his books, he has such a unique writing voice, and when I pick up one of his books, I'm like, oh yeah, this is a Brandon Sanderson book. But I don't really think I have had that thought with this book, which makes sense because it is his first published novel. But I just think it's really interesting and it feels a little bit more, I don't want to say generic because I feel like that has a negative connotation and I don't mean it that way, but it just doesn't feel like one of his books, you know, and that is like one of the things that I love about the rest of his work. And then the other thing that I'm kind of enjoying, but also I think it's not exactly the type of fantasy that I love picking up, is the fact that this is very political so far. The plot has not really progressed in any significant way yet, but there has been a heavy focus on like politics and world building, and I think it's all really interesting, but it's just a bit slow so far. But I think pretty soon we're gonna kind of, like, things are gonna pick up, and I think it is gonna get better because there are a lot of things that have been introduced and set up so far that I'm very highly anticipating being able to actually see those things come into effect, and I think it's all gonna be really good. But so far I think it's been a lot of setup so far. But as for the plot of this book, because I do think that is useful information, basically in this world there is this city called Elantris, and 10 years ago it was full and lively, bursting with life, and it was full of these godlike beings called the Elantrians. They had silver skin, they had magic, magic, they were immortal. It sounded really cool. Until one day, Elantris fell. All of those immortal beings, gone, dead, they're out of here, and Elantris started to rot. So this book is set 10 years after that event happened, and we are following kind of 3 different points of view. The first one being Raoden, who was the crowned prince of the kind of capital city right outside of Elantris called Key, I think. And in the very first chapter, like the first sentence, let me read this to you. It says, Prince Raoden of Arelon awoke early that morning, completely unaware that he had been damned for all eternity. And basically he has been infected with this thing called the Raud. I don't know, there's so many terms that are just like thrown at you in this book, and I have no clue how to pronounce any of them. But it's this disease that causes you to get black patches on your skin, and once it is discovered that you have this disease, you are then thrown into the old rotting city of Elantris to kind of just, I don't know, do whatever for the rest of eternity. They literally just throw these people into the city for the rest of eternity with a tiny little basket of like bread and I don't know, dried meat or something, and they're like, good luck. Have a good rest of your damned eternity, I guess. So we are kind of just following Raoden's point of view as he is navigating Elantris. He meets a friend called Galadin, I think, and he's kind of showing Raoden the ropes of all of the atrocious things that are going on in this rotting city. And I'm really liking Raoden as one of our main characters. I feel like even though he's been put in this terrible situation, he's still very optimistic and he's very full of hope, and he's trying to kind of bring that feeling to the other people that have been stuck in Elantris. He's also very charming. He seems very cunning so far as well. So I'm quite excited to see what else he is going to get up to in Elantris. There has also been some kind of hinting at the magic system that is present in this world. I still don't understand it yet though. And that's definitely one of the things that I am anticipating getting to see more from, because obviously Brandon Sanderson has great magic systems. And I feel like this one is also going to be kind of cool based on what we've gotten so far. Then we are also following a character that I'm thoroughly enjoying. Her name is Serene, I believe. And she is a princess from kind of a neighboring kingdom who came to Key initially so she could marry Prince Raoden, but she gets to the city and they're like, oh shoot, your husband died this morning. I'm so sorry. But the thing is, they have not told her that he got the sickness and they sent him into Elantris. They just told her that he died. So obviously I feel like at some point she's going to learn what has happened, and I'm really excited for what she is going to inevitably do with that information, because she is certainly not going home, because upon the death of Raoden, something in their marriage contract made it so that their marriage was actually carried out. So she is now essentially considered his widow, and she has decided to stay in town with some family that she has there and kind of just, you know, see what's up. And honestly, I love her character so far. She's very strong-willed and smart, and she's also very cunning. Like, honestly, I feel like her and Raoden would be a power couple. I cannot wait to see what the hopeful dynamic will be when they hopefully find each other again, because I think they would wreak absolute havoc together, and I want to see it. But honestly, I just love watching how she is dealing with kind of all of the men that she is being presented with in this city, because where she comes from, they seem a little bit more progressive than the people of Key. So very frequently she is kind of written off and dismissed from any like political things that are going on. But because all of these men aren't really paying much attention to her, it gives her a lot of room to kind of suss things out, figure out what's going on without drawing too much attention to herself. And I'm quite excited to see what she's gonna do in the rest of this book, because so far I love her and I feel like she's definitely going to shake things up, because the political climate of Key right now is absolutely awful, which kind of leads me into the third point of view that we're getting, which is definitely my least favorite, but I think that's kind of the point, because the third point of view is kind of coming from a more antagonistic angle, because he is a high priest, I think. His name is Hrathen, because he has come into Key with the mission to convert everybody in the city to his religion and then essentially take over. So even though he gets on my nerves most of the time, I do think he's an interesting point of view to add in there, and his chapters are shorter than Raoden's and Serene's, so that's alright with me. But overall, I think there is so much good setup that has happened so far. I think it's just a little bit slow for my taste at the moment, but I feel like once we get into it, it's gonna be really good. But I figured this week would honestly be a really good time to finally pick this book up, because I have to read so much anyway, so I'm like, why not? read this book that I've been meaning to read for so long. So I've read 54 pages so far today. Obviously my goal is to make it to page 300. So there's that. But before I get into letting you guys go, I do want to show you guys some things that I've acquired recently that I'm really excited about. Because first of all, I got some stickers yesterday. I ordered these off of Etsy a few weeks ago and they're so cute. They're from, oh god, I have no idea how to pronounce that. Here, information, if you guys want to check it out. I just stumbled upon these and I was like, I absolutely need these, so I ordered 5 sticker sheets. But okay, first of all, look at these butterflies. They're so cute. We also have, obviously, the Halloween ones I had to acquire. We have these. I think I really liked the this little jar, and like these constellations were super cute. Then we have some book ones, obviously. And finally we have some pumpkins, which I think are adorable. And I cannot wait to use these because they're so cute. And then I also have some bookmarks because if you guys don't know, Jody recently, I think kind of recently, opened up an Etsy shop. So she sent me some more of her bookmarks and I think they are so cute. So let me just show these to you guys. We have one for the fantasy readers out there. We have a little Divine Rivals quotes. And then I love these. There's a little like Stars Hollow book club, and then we kind of have the same thing for just like a wintry book club. And I just think these are adorable. So thank you so much, Jody, for the bookmarks. I will link both this and this down in the description if you want to check it out. But anyway, I have yammered on way too much. So I'm now going to get into reading my 200 pages of Elantris, and I will talk to you guys probably tomorrow, hopefully with a shorter update. Wednesday morning, we are on the second to last day of the challenge, and I would say this is going well so far. I also do have quite a sizable update for you guys on Elantris because yesterday I read quite a bit of it. So I reached my 200 pages, but then I realized that part 2 was only like 60 more pages, so I decided to read until I got there. So I think I read 271 pages yesterday, which is quite a lot. And then I've been reading some this morning and I'm on page 446 now. So I am like 3/4 of the way through the book, I would say. And it's been getting really good, honestly. I think this book definitely had a slow start, a slow build up, if you will. I don't think I really got super invested in it until I got to part 2. Which was like 367 pages into the book, which I don't 100% love. I think it's definitely a slow burn, political focused story, which isn't necessarily something that I normally gravitate towards. But I do think that buildup is going to be worth it because at the point in the story that I'm at now, I am hooked and I definitely am so excited to see what's going to happen at the end of this book. I definitely have some predictions that I feel like are probably going to happen, but there are also a lot of things that I still have questions about that I would really like to see answered. So definitely very intrigued so far. I think my goal honestly is to finish this book today just because I am very invested now. It took me a while, but I think I'm into it. I'm very excited to read the rest of this. So I think, let's see, this book is 615 pages long, so I have a little bit less than 200 pages now, so that definitely seems doable. I don't know if I have too much more to say about it because, like I said, it's been a slow build and the things that we've been getting are kind of like, you know, spoilery. But something I do want to say that I've been finding really interesting and kind of fun to pick up on are these ideas that he has used in his later work, but they're kind of like a first draft almost in this book. Like, for example, Raoden getting dropped into Elantris and then kind of rallying everybody together to kind of bring hope to all the people that are in this awful situation. Very similar to what Kaladin goes through in the very first Stormlight book when he is dropped into the awful situation that he is dropped into. So I think that's a really interesting parallel. I don't find Raoden and Kaladin to be similar at all, to be honest, because I feel like Raoden is way too hopeful and optimistic to be compared to Kaladin in any capacity, but I also do think Kaladin's like a more dynamic character than Raoden has been so far, but that would make sense. Like, I don't want to like pit them against each other, but I just think it's interesting to kind of point out those similarities. And then the other thing that I want to talk about is Brandon Sanderson and his love of like talking magical companions. I feel like in this book, they're like a small part of the plot. They're called Scions, and they're these small balls of light that follow around some of our characters, and that is inherently tied to like the magic system going on in this world. I just think it's so funny that in like almost every single one of Brandon Sanderson's books that I've read, there has been some sort of magical talking companion, and this book is no exception. I think the Scions are definitely like my least favorite ones of the bunch, but I also think they're kind of like a prototype almost for the ones that are to come. So I think that's all I have to say about Elantris for now. As I said earlier, I really want to finish this book up today just because I'm really excited to kind of see what happens, get some answers to my questions hopefully. And yes, I'm gonna go finish this up and I will probably chat to you guys tomorrow morning. I do need to pick the book that I'm gonna read after this. I was thinking maybe the 10,000 Doors of January still, kind of stick to my initial TBR, but I'm not sure. But at any rate, you'll probably see what book I pick up next in like 3 seconds. So let's get into that, I guess. Alright, so it is now Thursday morning. It is the last day of the challenge, and I am so excited that it's the last day. I can't lie. Like, I just want to do a day of no reading. That sounds kind of nice. But I have to give you guys my final thoughts on Elantris, and then I also read something else yesterday, like a really short something, which I'll talk about too. And then I need to talk about what I decided to pick up today, because I feel like it was kind of a random pick based on the initial TBR that I had for this video, but we'll get into it. I just have updates and such. So first of all, we can talk about Elantris. If I was rating this book solely on part 2, this would be getting such a solid 5 out of 5 stars because part 2 was so good. I just feel like the pacing, the plot progression, the characters, everything in part 2, I was eating up, to be honest. Like, I don't know what happened. Part 1 was like fine. It was very slow moving. And like, that's my only really complaint with it, is that not a lot happens. But then part 2 started and I was like, hold on. This is so good. But then part 3 happened and I didn't like it as much as part 2. So I feel like it is what it is. I just feel like overall, I really ended up enjoying Elantris. As I was kind of progressing through it initially, I was like, I don't know if this is the kind of book that I will literally ever reread again. But I feel like once I hit the kind of halfway point in it, I was like, no, I'm gonna reread this at some point. Because even though part 1 was slow, I feel like it made everything that happened in part 2 and 3 that much more satisfying because you had that initial buildup. I just feel like in the moment, I didn't appreciate it. I still don't know if I appreciate it now, to be honest, but I see what it did for the story. But I actually feel like the characters ended up being my favorite part of this story. I don't think they're quite as well fleshed out as his later characters, and I think both Raoden and Serene are very static throughout this book. Like, I don't really think they change much. They're very much the same from beginning to end, even though they've gone through all of these things. But I don't necessarily mind that in this scenario because I just really enjoyed both of them as main characters that we were following. I really like Raoden and his whole kind of beacon of hope thing he had going on for the people of Elantris. But Serenia is definitely my favorite. I loved her so much, and I feel like she carried this book. I think she was the most engaging. She's just so entertaining, and every time we got one of her chapters, I was so excited. I just thought she was such a solid main character, and kind of seeing how she was dealing with all of the men being presented to her, I really liked, because she definitely knew how to put them in their place, and I thought that was really fun. And then the third point of view, I definitely appreciated it more as I went throughout the book, but that's not to say I necessarily enjoyed his chapters. He's one of those antagonists that just like, oh my god, he gets on my nerves, because he's not like evil necessarily. He thinks that everything he is doing is the right thing to do. He's very like self-righteous, really, in a very literal sense, because he's basically using religion to justify everything that he has been doing, even though you know it's wrong, because the whole time he's like, I'm only here to serve my lord Jadith, and this is what he would want me to do, as he is trying to convert all of the people of this area to his religion so he can go in and steal the throne. So I think he's an interesting point of view to add in there, and I liked what he did for the story overall. But like Raoden and Serenie, loved them. Loved them so much. Also, I really liked their romance, shall we say. I know Brandon Sanderson is not like known for writing romantic subplots. Like some of them I really don't like, actually. I'm looking at the one in Stormlight. I hate it, honestly. That's my hot take for the day. But this one, I actually thought it was really cute. I thought they had really good chemistry, and even though it was like a very small part of the plot, I was like, hold on. I kind of love them. And overall, for the most part, I had a really good time reading this book. Like, I hit a point yesterday where I had to know how this book ended, so I just like kept going. I think I read from like 9 a.m. to about 3 p.m. yesterday, just continuously, and I was having such a good time, honestly. The only thing that I also don't really enjoy about this book is the way that it ended. Like, the second part of part 3, I didn't love. Like, there were definitely some cool things happening, but I definitely think there were way too many plot conveniences happening at the end of this book. Like, one of our characters would get in trouble, and like immediately this random thing would just like come out of the woodwork and save them from what was happening, and that happened repeatedly. So I was like, I never feared for our characters in the slightest, and I don't love that. But I'm not super mad about that. I just think it's something more so to note than to be upset about. So yeah, I feel like my opinion on Elantris has changed quite drastically from the update that I gave you guys a couple of days ago, which is very exciting because I've been putting this off for a long time because I didn't think I would really enjoy it that much. But I did. And then last night after I finished that, I decided to pick up The Hope of Elantris, which is a very, very short story that takes place during like the climactic scene at the end of Elantris, and that is in Arcanum Unbounded. I figured I should pick it up yesterday because if I didn't pick it up immediately after reading Elantris, there was no way in hell I was actually gonna read it. So I decided to pick it up. It's only like 25 pages, I think, and it was fine. It's not my favorite thing, but it was only 25 pages, so I figured why not read it. But the thing that really made me like it was I read the postscript for it that he wrote in this book. And apparently he wrote this story for one of his fans who was really young that read Elantris and wrote a little book report for it. And this was like really early in his career, so he was like really touched by that. So he wrote her a little short story that, you know, like pertained to Elantris, and I was like, wait, why am I gonna cry? Because that's so cute. So that definitely made me love the story a lot more, and I think upon a reread of Elantris, I would probably reread The Hope of Elantris, just because I think the sentiment behind it is really nice. Also last night, I finally like kind of cracked this open a bit more, because I've had this for a couple of months, but I think I've read both of like the 2 longer stories that are in here, because both Edge Dancer and The Emperor's Soul are in here, and I read both of those already, like before I got this, so I haven't cracked it open yet. But I knew that I would need this at like some point, so I just decided to pick it up because there are a lot of Mistborn related stories in here that I haven't read yet. But I didn't realize that there was like so much information about the different like systems in the Cosmere, and I was reading this last night at like 1 a.m. and I was like, there's just so much information about all of these different systems. There are even like little charts of like the solar system, I guess, that they're in. And also at the beginning of each of these pages, because it's separated by system, there's like a page of information about all of these planets, and I was learning so much last night. I was like, I have never been more knowledgeable than this moment right here. And it makes me really, really excited to kind of finish up the Cosmere so I can eventually do a reread and like actually contextualize what's going on in here, you know? But that does lead me into the reading plan that you guys have already seen because I put it in like the B-roll. But I decided to go off TBR again. Because I wanted to read more Brandon Sanderson. So I decided to pick up Shadows of Self. This is the second book in Era 2 of Mistborn. I read The Alloy of Law last month, and I really ended up liking it. It's not like a favorite, obviously, but I thought it was a pretty good time. So I've been meaning to pick up the other books in this series, and I figured, why not do it now? Because honestly, I really don't want to do any physical reading today. My brain is fried after reading Elantris in like 2.5 days, so I think I need a break from that. So I decided to pick up the audiobook for this series, and I don't mind listening to this series on audio because I don't like really care too deeply about it. More so I just want to like get the information. But actually I've started this and I'm on page 64 now. And this book has been so funny so far. Like there have been so many parts in this that have like actually made me laugh. And it makes me sad because the dynamic that I'm laughing at is kind of obsolete later in the series. Oh, but it was so funny. I'm sad, but yeah, I've just been enjoying this so far. It's a nice, easy listen. I like the audiobooks because they're narrated by Michael Kramer, and he is a solid audiobook narrator for the Cosmere. So I don't really have much more to say about this. Era 2 is, you know, it's a fun time. It's not my favorite, but I'm so close to catching up with the Cosmere. I need to read the other 3 books in this series, Yumi, and then I don't know if I'm gonna read The Sunlit Man or not. I might. If any of you guys have read The Sunlit Man, let me know. Is it worth it? Like, I know it's connected to things, and I know it'll help connect things, but I just don't know if I want to. But I would love to know if you guys have read it. What do you think? Anyway, I need to go read my other 140 or so pages for today, and then I will chat to you guys probably tomorrow to, like, fully wrap up the vlog. Alright, so it is now Friday morning. It is officially the end of the challenge. Yesterday was the end of the challenge, and I have some bad news. Because yesterday I did not hit my 200 pages. Literally in the home stretch. I managed to whiff, and I'm so sad. But it's fine. Everything's fine. I only ended up reading 114 pages yesterday. I was just so tired last night. I ended up being a lot busier yesterday than I anticipated because I had to film, edit, and upload my March wrap-up, which took a lot longer than I expected it to. And I got a new phone yesterday, so I had to like spend a lot of time figuring out how to set that up, which also took more time than I was anticipating. So by the time I was done with everything, it was like 9:30, and I was like, I'm tired. It's been a long day. It's been a long week of reading. I just couldn't do it. But I did read some more of this. I ended up making it to page 114, and I think I'm kind of okay with the fact that I didn't make it to 200 pages with this book yesterday, just because I feel like I wasn't really absorbing much of what I was reading. I was just listening to the audiobook and trying to get through it, and I'm like, why would I want to do that? You know, this is one of the last books I have to read in the Cosmere, so I'm like, I don't want to squander this experience away by trying to like read too much of it in one day. But I honestly don't really have too much more to say about this book. It continues to be entertaining. We're also learning some more very interesting things about Wax and Wayne, which I am quite intrigued by. But the one thing that I don't love about this series so far is that they don't actually have Mistborn in it, because with the whole like allomancy thing, Mistborn are people that can use like all of the powers, and I don't think Mistborns are like a thing in this series. They always talk about them as though they're like these mythological beings that, you know, never could have existed, but I loved them in the first series, so I'm kind of sad that this series doesn't have that. But that's just a small thing that I didn't even realize going into the series, but I think it's something to note. But I did want to show you guys the reading journal spread that I made for this kind of reading challenge, just because I really like how it turned out, and I'm finally finished like filling it out now that the week's over. Here we go. I finally got to use these little like holographic butterfly and dragonfly stickers that I have, and they're so pretty. I love how they look in the light. And I also put like a little frowny face up here next to my bar graph for yesterday. And I've been meaning to use these little like emoticon stickers, so I was actually kind of happy that I had a reason to use it. But it is now time to officially wrap up the vlog. I'm gonna give you guys a quick overview of all the books that I've read in this video, because I know this video is quite long. I'm so sorry. I feel like I've been yammering so much this week. Like the yammering has never been more free-flowing. I don't even know. But anyway, here are all of the books that I managed to get to this week. This looks a lot more impressive than it is because I read like 25 pages out of this, and I read like a fourth of this. But let me give you guys a quick little overview here. The very first book I read was The Magician's Daughter by H.G. Perry. I didn't like it quite as much as I thought I was going to, but I still enjoyed it. Then I read The Invocations, which was my 5-star read of the vlog. It was so good, and I'm still so happy that I decided to pick this up. I had such a good time, so spooky, so creepy, but just so fun. Then I think my biggest accomplishment of the video was me finally reading Elantris. Honestly, I've been thinking about Elantris a lot since I finished it, and I just really enjoyed this book. I feel like the more that I've sat with it, the more I have appreciated the buildup that part one offered and kind of seeing all of that play out in the subsequent parts. I do think our two main characters, while I love them, I think they're very stereotypical, but I don't really mind it in this scenario. I don't know. I just really enjoyed it. There are even some moments towards the end of this book that I found worthy enough to like dog ear the pages of, which I don't do very often, but I just really liked them. And then obviously I did read 25 pages out of Arcanum Unbounded because I read The Hope of Elantris. I'm not gonna count this as like a book finished in this vlog because it's so short, but I did want to mention it. And I'm also just so happy that I finally had a reason to take this off my shelf and like actually look at it, because there's a short story in here that I looked into a bit more, and it's called Shadows for Silence in the Forests of Hell, and I didn't realize it was like a more horror-leaning story, and I'm so intrigued by that. Like, Brandon Sanderson and horror does not compute in my brain. So I think it's just gonna be a really interesting read, and I've definitely bumped that up on my TBR because I really want to read that now. I wonder what the little illustration is for it. Ooh. I don't know what's going on there, but that looks cool. And then, as I just said, I did start Shadows of Silence. What? They're so similar in title. Then I started Shadows of Self. Honestly, I might start this book over. I feel like I was not present for most of what was happening in the first part of this book, and that's my fault. So I'll probably restart it at some point, to be honest. Probably soon, because I do want to continue this series quickly. I don't know, there are some parts that I was listening to, but I feel like for the most part, I wasn't in it, guys. But anyway, those are all of the books that I managed to get to this week. Let me quickly tally up all of the pages that I read so I can give you guys a little final tally. I ended up reading 1,520 pages, which does average out to more than 200 pages a day. So I'm gonna consider that a win. I would definitely say this challenge was a big success just because I picked up so many books that I ended up really loving. I've never been more happy that I deviated from a TBR, because I know I didn't pick up the 10,000 Doors of January, and initially I did have 2 other books on this TBR as well, which you've probably seen in like the stacks that I've shown in like the B-roll. Didn't get to those either, but I think the books that I did pick up, solid picks on my end, so I'm quite happy about that. So I really hope you guys enjoyed watching. If you did, obviously I would love to know down below, have you read any of the books that I read in this video? We could talk about any of them. Or if you haven't, obviously I would just love to know down below, how many pages do you guys think you read on average per day? I certainly do not hit a 200 page average personally. I'd say I probably read, I don't know, on average like I don't know, because some days I don't read at all, and then some days when I'm filming videos, I'll read like 300 pages in a day. So it really just depends on what I'm doing, what I'm feeling. So actually I don't really have an answer for you. But if you guys have like an answer, I'd love to know. Also, before we go, I did want to thank everybody over on my Patreon. If you're ever looking for more content from me, that is always down below. But with that, I am actually gonna let you guys go. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you all have an amazing rest of your Monday or whatever day it is that you are watching this video. And I will see you all in my next one.